Welcome back to my G1 Retro Reviews. Today we're taking a look at the original Transformers series episode, Enter the Nightbird, the debut of the titular character, Nightbird. In this episode, the Decepticons steal the latest invention of Dr. Fujiyama, the famous scientist, his giant female ninja robot, Nightbird, who the Decepticons reprogram for evil and unleash on the Autobots. This episode begins with the Autobots installing some security panels when Cliffjumper runs in.
Come quickly, it's Dr. Fujiyama, the famous scientist!
Dr. Fujiyama, the famous scientist? Well, I've never heard of him before, so I guess it's a good thing that they specified that he was a famous scientist, and not one of those non-famous ones that you've never heard of. Dr. Fujiyama is actually named after Mount Fuji in Japan, as Yama means mountain in Japanese. When we meet Dr. Fujiyama, we can tell that he's voiced by the legendary Michael Bell, who you may know by some of his countless roles, both on-screen and behind the microphone, including, most notably, Prowl, Swoop, Scrapper, Sideswipe, Bombshell, and many other characters in this series. This does, however, bring up a somewhat controversial subject that is very important in Hollywood today, and that is the casting of actors to play roles of characters which they themselves do not represent. This includes casting straight actors to play gay characters, cisgendered actors to play trans characters, and, most relevant to this episode, casting white actors to play people of color. Here, Michael Bell is a white man playing an Asian man. These days, production probably would have brought in an Asian guest voice actor to play Dr. Fujiyama. I think someone like Meiko Iwamatsu, best known as the voice of Uncle Iroh from Avatar, would have been great in this role. But this was the 80s, and the Transformers already had a huge cast and a limited budget. So I think we can forgive them for not bringing in a guest voice just for this one small non-recurring role. And obviously, they would never do something like that again today, right? So, Dr. Fujiyama asks Optimus Prime and the Autobots to attend the unveiling of his latest invention.
My curiosity is aroused. We will come, Doctor.
That is what she said.
Dr. Fujiyama reveals his invention, Nightbird, a giant female ninja robot. And someone in the audience asks the question that we're all wondering.
Why build a robot ninja, Doctor? Isn't that rather dangerous?
I assure you, gentlemen, she is not meant for battle or assassinations, and I have limited her powers accordingly.
I mean, I still don't get why you would build a ninja robot specifically. Has he not seen Terminator? Wait, when was the first Terminator movie released? 1984. Okay, so that movie would have been out by now. Was he not worried about his machine turning against him? You don't see Boston Dynamics building potentially deadly robots, do you? Oh, wait. So the Decepticons attack. And there's a couple interesting moments I'd like to point out in this fight. First is that we see Blue Streak take a bullet for Optimus, which is very brave, but be careful there, Blue Streak. The next one is that we see Mirage shoot Soundwave while invisible, which honestly surprised me. I don't know how long it's been since I've last watched this episode, but I didn't remember him doing that or see it coming. Great use of your superpower, Mirage. Also, when Megatron shoots Optimus in the back... What? That's not Peter Cullen's voice. Apparently, that is Mirage's voice, who is played by Frank Welker. Huh. So, does that mean that Frank Welker has technically played Optimus Prime as well? Thus predating both Gary Chalk and David Kaye, who have both played an Optimus Prime and a Megatron at some point. So, the Decepticons peel the top of the building off like a can opener.
Thundercracker and Starscream!
What, no respect for Skywarp?
We're not staying long, Auto Boobs!
You know what, I better not. I'm probably already going to have enough lewd jokes in this review as it is. So the Decepticons steal Nightbird, and take her back to their temporary base, which is a giant Decepticon symbol. Yeah, great hiding place there, guys. This is why I love G1. and how they can be so absurdly campy and nonsensical at times. Bombshell reprogramming Nightbird into a Decepticon. Oh, wait, is Nightbird technically a Decepticon now? I know in additional fiction years later she would basically become a full-fledged Decepticon, but is she officially one in this episode? Let's just say that she is. So Bombshell reprogramming her into a Decepticon reminds me of how in Beast Wars, the Predacons, usually Tarantulas, would reprogram the Maximal Protoforms into new Predacons. Maybe Tarantulas and Bombshell are related. So they send Nightbird to infiltrate the Autobot base, and I love how not only do we get a look at some parts of the arc that we never ever see, but we also get an impressive display of some of Nightbird's weapons and abilities. A grappling hook, magnetic feet, and throwable saw blade hands. And that's just the start. She then blinds the Autobots with a Wonder Woman-style transformation and escapes.
How'd she do that?
Megatron probably taught her the HM Flash.
She was playing Robotopossum.
Another Cybertronian animal reference? How many episodes in a row is that now? While probably not as cute as Zap Mice or Helio Hamsters, I'd still like to see a Robotopossum at a Cybertron zoo. So Nightbird whips out her lightsaber, which literally has Star Wars lightsaber sound effects.
Nightbird, we've come to help.
Not as clumsy or random as a blaster. An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
Which brings up something that I've kind of ignored in previous episode reviews. And it's that there are often Star Wars sound effects used in this show. For example, when Laserbeak was flying around, he sounded like a TIE fighter. There's no official explanation given as to why there are so many Star Wars sound effects recycled in Transformers, other than the fact that the original movie and trilogy were, and still are, very influential in other media. I previously thought that the audio production for Transformers simply had access to the same library of sound effects that Star Wars had, similar to how some old, totally unrelated video games would sometimes share the same sound effects and textures because they had access to the same stock audio and picture libraries. But apparently this is not the case. The Transformers audio production actually lifted the audio directly from the movies themselves, which even led to some fragments of lines from Star Wars unintentionally making it into the Transformers cartoon, along with the mixed-in desired sound effect. Transformers have had even more blatant Star Wars references than just stolen audio, with Ewoks and Jawas appearing in the first episode of Victory, and even C-3PO and R2-D2 themselves appearing in another episode. And don't get me started on how the Transformers movie cribs a lot from the original Star Wars. But hey, I'll get to that when I eventually finish Season 2 and review Transformers the movie. And I'm never going to get there if I just keep talking about Star Wars. So on with this episode review. So Nightbird escapes the Autobots once again. And back at the Decepticons' ostentatious temporary headquarters, Megatron and Bombshell are singing her praises. But Starscream seems to be growing a little jealous.
She's not so hot.
She's hot enough to replace you whenever I choose.
Back at the Autobot base, Ironhide and Ratchet are repairing the damage that Nightbird caused.
It's got to be Megatron.
More likely that ninja she-bot.
Why does this almost sound like a slur? The Autobots catch up to Nightbird, who uses her bungee gum ability to take back her sword from Optimus Prime, like Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter. And of course, how can I not mention this infamous scene where all the Autobots are jumping up a cliff to chase after Nightbird, and the only one who doesn't quite make it is the one who is actually named Cliff Jumper. Aww, poor little guy.
No more Mr. Nice Guy. The she-bots bought it.
Again with the she-bot comment? For some reason this term really rubs me the wrong way. The Autobots try to capture Nightbird, but she fends them off single-handedly. Back at the Decepticon base, Megatron is in love.
She's everything I've always wanted.
And Starscream is rightfully jealous of Megatron's new flame.
Replace me? Never!
Skywolf, Thundercracker, grab him!
But while dealing with Starscream's scorn, the Autobots use their own Nen abilities to imprison Nightbird. The Decepticons go to save Megatron's new girlfriend.
Keep your hands off my property, Autoclad!
But back at the Decepticon base, Starscream frees himself and goes to try and get rid of Nightbird.
Megatron's new assistant, eh?
For one thing, I didn't know Starscream was Canadian. 2, assistant? Is that what we're calling it now? I guess other terms would have been too mature for this cartoon. And 3rd, has she really earned the title of Megatron's assistant yet? Shouldn't she be assistant to Megatron first? So Starscream shoots Nightbird in the back.
Hey! Say goodnight to your Megatron!
Why wouldn't you just go with, say goodnight to Nightbird? Or, say goodnight to your little birdie? And so the episode ends with the Decepticons going after the treacherous Starscream, and the Autobots returning Nightbird to Dr. Fujiyama. But it's clear that Nightbird still functions, and she is not happy about being locked up. What a great episode of G1. Definitely one of my favorites. Nightbird is such a cool and awesome character. Technically, she could be considered one of, if not the first female robot to appear in the Transformers cartoon. Although obviously not of Cybertronian origin, and not a true Transformer. At least not yet. As years later in the Legends manga, she would escape and eventually find her way to the 6 Clan, which is a secret group of 6 changing ninjas, which Sixshot is a part of. From them, she'd learned how to transform into a swan mode, and later on she would acquire a car mode too. She would have appearances in other comics as well, but never again in the cartoons. Which is a shame, because I would really love to see her show up again in other Transformers cartoons. The best part is she doesn't even have to talk, so they could add another female to the cast without even having to worry about paying another voice actress. She could be like the female version of Prime Soundwave. And of course, Nightbird would also undoubtedly inspire the appearance of other female bots, like the Torchbearer Dust-Up and inherently her Decepticon repaint, Flowspade, as well as the Decepticon triple changer Shatter from the Bumblebee movie. You know, it's kind of a shame that Dr. Fujiyama wasn't a recurring character. I mean, he created Nightbird, who I love and is such an awesome and interesting character in her own right. Who knows what Dr. Fujiyama might have come up with if he was in other episodes.
We should have looked into Dr. Fujiyama's toy chest sooner. His ninja robot is magnificent.
Well, what about you? What did you think of this episode of the original Transformers series? As always, let me know down in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and do all that other fun stuff. And I'll see you back here next time for the next episode of G1, A Prime Problem. So I'll see you back here next week for that.